What up, YouTube? It's Frisky Dingo here, getting back with you guys with another reaction/review video. Always remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on this video because we are on a grind for that 1K subs. That being said, today's video is Teofimo Lopez versus George Kambosos and Fulton versus Figueroa. With the Lopez versus Kambosos fight, it went exactly how I thought it was going to go. I didn't expect the first round knockdown from George Kambosos, but overall I saw that Kambosos was training on what he had seen from sparring videos from Teofimo Lopez and his weakness, which was always the overhand right leading in. That being said, even though Kambosos was doing good for the first 9 rounds, he ended up taking his foot off the pedal. Basically, he went away from establishing the jab like he was in the first couple of rounds, and he went to just start throwing body shots, which allowed Teofimo Lopez to catch him. But overall, the fight was still good. I mean, I thought that Teofimo could have done a little bit better in the sense of preparation for this fight. He obviously was not prepared for a fighter as rugged as George Kambosos. And with the technical skills that George was displaying, the minute he stopped using the jab, he was still using his lateral foot movement, and Teofimo Lopez really could not see where the jabs were coming from. So overall, Teofimo Lopez ended up losing solely based off of skill. George Kambosos did bring that skill to this fight, and which had him overall the victor because he ended up actually studying a game plan to defeat Teofimo, whereas Teofimo looked like he was just trying to go in there for the knockout, which is very unfortunate because this is boxing and you should be as very much technical for every fight you get into. That being said, congratulations to George Kambosos. Everyone was looking at him as an underdog and or as looking through him, and he proved to a lot of people why the mandatory position is necessary in boxing, but also shows that you should never discount a fighter just because they are mandatory, which makes absolutely no sense. So Teofimo got what he deserved, and ultimately I think he should go back to the drawing board. He only has 18 wins, the least out of the top 135 fighters, and he needs to basically develop his skills once more. Strength and power works, but when you're going against a rugged, very much veteran of the game, then you're going to face problems because at the end of the day, that power isn't going to have them in constant fear, but also is not going to keep them at bay. And it was very obvious that Teofimo's power was not keeping George Kambosos at bay, and hence why I always thought that the Haney fight was going to be an easy win, because I never truly believed Lopez had real power. People think that real power comes from knocking out Kami or Nakatani or Mandrega, when all these fighters have already been knocked out and or exposed. Kami, a one-dimensional fighter, was struggling with Bunny Easter. A lot of people knew him, who had struggled with a full technical fighter in Mikey Garcia. So there was no reason why Kami should have even won against Teofimo. That being said, the Fulton versus Figueroa fight, that was extremely good fight. The only problem I have with that fight was that Figueroa wasn't landing flush shots. He was doing more of a pity-patty punch, kind of reminiscent of Spence versus Garcia when Spence came back from his car accident. That being said, I thought Fulton did what he needed to do, basically creating angles, working through the angles, breaking through Figueroa, who was basically putting pressure on Fulton by pushing his body and basically draining the weight out of Fulton. It's a very common tactic within boxing to lean on your opponent. It basically gets your opponent tired and wear down, and that's basically what Figueroa was trying to do. But Fulton, looking at it, he saw the angles when Figueroa was trying to establish the jab, and by that point, Fulton ended up realizing that if he broke into angles after hitting every shot, after every jab, he would be able to continue to put on the pressure. And that's what he ended up doing. Every time Figueroa moved up and threw the jab and tried to counter with volume of punches, Fulton would go ahead and basically at that point go into an angle and then counter him. and he ended up countering him with some pretty clean hits. Now everyone thinks that fight was extremely close, but it really was. The difference was that Fulton landed the cleaner shots. That being said, congratulations to Fulton on becoming a unified champion. Unification fights are very important for boxing. I thought Figueroa did extremely well. I just think that he needs to work on his technique. That being said, his technique was not necessarily good for this fight. He is a range, tall, lanky fighter. What he should have done is, to Fulton, who is the smaller fighter, is have him at a distance, keep him at bay. Basically, use your jab to work him out and basically keep him outside so he's not able to come inside of come inside of your bubble. A perfect fight would for this, in just so you can understand, is Spence versus Mikey Garcia. If you watch that fight, Spence, being the longer fighter, used his jab and used his power to basically keep Garcia, the smaller fighter, at bay. I think that's something that Figueroa should have copied. He was using much more of a brawler style in this fight, and brawler style works, but when you're a long, stiff jab fighter, you should use that stiff jab to your advantage, keeping your opponent on the outside, and every time they're trying to pop in, you hit them with the jab. That's one thing that Figueroa should have done, because once again, he's a tall fighter. A tall fighter should not be fighting a brawler type, because you have such an advantage with your width and with your length of your jab. It makes absolutely no sense why he didn't do that. He was extremely bigger than Fulton, and I think that's why the fight was very close, but Fulton ended up winning the fight because Figueroa just did not look clean fighting. That being said, congrats to Kambosos and Fulton. It was extremely good fight. Salute to both of y'all. Teofimo Lopez, I think he could get back on the horse and get back into his prime image, but I think it's absolutely, at this point, going to be hard for him to come back, especially after losing to Kambosos, who he considered a complete underdog and was not going into this fight being looked at as a victor or top competition. That being said, hopefully we get more news about fights coming up. We have the Jojo Diaz versus Devin Haney versus Jojo Diaz fight. I think that's going to be extremely well. That being said, that Jojo Diaz is moving up in weight. He's always been a 135 fighter before at 130. So this is going to be a more comfortable weight for him, which I think will be perfect against Haney, who a lot of people consider to be weak with his power shots. So overall, we shall see a really good fight. Then we have the Davis versus Pitbull fight. I'm not excited for that one. That's a boring fight in my opinion. There's no point of Diaz fighting this guy. What is he doing? He should be going in there with Regis Prograis or someone else who out of 145 with 140 with an established name. But other than that, I can't wait for that fight either. So hopefully we find out more news. But I will see you guys in the next one.